Okay, we're going to talk about lasts. This is a modern last as we know them today. In Civil War times, there was no lefts or rights. They just had straight lasted boots, and they wore them on either foot. They'd wear them on one until they wore down and then switch sides. Sizing as we know it is only about 100 years old, and there's approximately 300 sizes. If you order sample lasts such as this from a factory, there'd be 6B in the ladies or an 8D in the men's. Lasts are made of plastic or wood, mostly plastic now. They lathe them out. There's a point on each end when they first finish them that has to be cut off and polished to make the completed last. And then they cut the V area, drill the hole for the ferrule, which is this that hooks onto your lasting jack, that come in 3/8 or 1/2 inch size. Most of the newer jacks use a 1/2 inch spindle, but you can order them still in the 3/8. The cone is this area here. There's been a great discussion on what's the most comfortable last. Lucchese, which is a famous Texas bootmaker, contends that the in-flared cone is the best, most comfortable. And that is the type of cone that comes in quite sharply and points approximately at the big toe. Factories don't use them much anymore because it's too hard to get under and sew the welt in this area. So they have straightened this area out, not because it's more comfortable, but because it accommodates the machinery. The toe spring that we've spoken of is this right here, and that is very important in the efficient gait of your boot. Heel height is measured from here down, and you can vary your height from what it should be on your last design up as much as 1/4 inch from there, or down as much as 1/4 inch from there. Maximum travel of 1/2 inch. Okay, the crown of your last is this area right through here. Now most factory lasts are very flat in this area. We like our last the crown more because it's more comfortable, because that's more like your foot. The heel plate is this right here. They also make lasts with what they call a 3/4 bottom, which is actually just a plate up through the arch area. And they also make a full metal bottom last, such as this one. This is a full metal bottom last. They just leave 3 small holes to tack the insole. There's one other type that has a heel plate and also a metal toe plate. This is an old wooden factory last, and as you can see from all the repair, they're a lot rougher on them than a hand builder is, and that is why they put a plate on the toe. This is also a shoe last, which you can see because of the very short heel. There's 2 different types of lasts as far as getting them out of the boot. Modern lasts are brake lasts, which is like this one. You break them like that and then pull it out of the boot. There's also the removable cone last, which is a last like this one. This is an older wooden last. This isn't too commonly made in production anymore, but Dawkins from Texas still build the lasts in this manner. You pull the cone thusly and then pull your last out of the boot like this. Okay, in the United States we use the arithmetic method of measuring, and that is quite different from some of the foreign makers, and that's the reason that a lot of foreign shoes don't fit like the American lasted shoes. The arithmetic method changes 1/3 inch in length per size and 1/4 inch in girth per full size. If it changes the width per full size, just changes the girth only, 1/4 inch. Okay, we will show you 3 different toe styles here that we have. The first is a quite pointed toe, second is a little rounder, and then the third is a Lucchese toe, what we call a Lucchese toe. And some of you people in the repair trade may have seen some of these come in your shop. And with that, we can go to Dennis and he'll talk to you about build-ups.
Okay, we're going to get into the build-up process now. If there's any part of this boot making that's black magic, this is it. A lot of the things that I do, it's very difficult to explain why you do it because you've gained this knowledge through experience. I'll try and make it as clear as can be what last I choose, why I choose that last, where to build up on the last. A lot of this you're going to gain only through experience. Nobody can teach you this. This has an awful lot to do with fit. As you remember, we started with, and we use the Rit stick to measure length. This is where I start. I take this length measurement, and I go to a standard comparison chart. We're going to send you one of these charts. This chart lists stick length and converts it to English shoe sizes. If it was, for instance, a 9 3/4 inch stick length, you would go over to the conversion chart and come up with approximately a size 7 last for length. This is where I start. On the other side of this, I have a standard last measurement chart. I've determined that I need approximately a size 7 last. I will go down the 7 column until I come up with the dimensions, girth dimensions that I've come up with when I measured their feet. In this particular case, I've come down to approximately a 7 double E. These dimensions change 1/8 of an inch per half size. So if you were to have a complete set of lasts, a full set of lasts, everything from AAA to Triple E and everything in between, you would do much less last build up. You would be able to take say a 7.5 and an 8 and accomplish that 1/8 of an inch difference. Once you get within 1/8 of an inch of that foot measurement, you're close. A lot of times I fit short because the foot has an awful lot of fat on it. A fatty foot, you can take as much as 1/4 of an inch off the measurement and it will fit good. We'll go from here and I'll show you the difference in the lasts. I've taken and traced the outlines that we've made for their feet. I also cut out the impression, one of the impressions we made. Remember with the pedograph we made an impression. I'll lay this inside their foot tracing so you get some idea of the difference. Okay, as you can see, the impression is considerably smaller than what we traced around the foot. This person has a bunion, which didn't show up on the impression. You can see quite of the fatty tissue of the foot hanging out here. Okay, this is why you take both of them. You're going to use the impression for arch length. You're going to use the impression because it tells you where they carry their weight. But you're going to use the tracing to show you where to build the last up. In this particular case, we have to do quite a bit of build up here. When you fit the last, you're going to look at the dimensions that you've taken on their foot, and it's going to show a very wide foot. But if you look at the tracing, you know that you measured over a bunion. So this foot really isn't this wide. If you lay the impression in here, or look at the impression, you'll notice it's considerably narrower. You are going to go to a little bit narrower last and just build the ball area out. Otherwise, the rest of the boot would be too big for them. Okay, I'll take and lay a last on here and give you some idea of the difference in sizes. If we take the original impression, again, this is one that I've colored in for you so that we can show it a little bit better for you in black and white, I guess. And lay, say, a last on it that is too long. You'll get an idea of what we're looking for. I'll turn it a little bit here so you can see. If you notice, the ball of the last is here. The ball of the person's foot is here. In order for this last to fit, you would have to slide this last to approximately here, and this is almost a 1/2 inch too long. By the same token, if you were to take a last that were, say, the right length but much too narrow and put on this chart, you would notice all the black sticking out here. Okay, this impression tells you the width of the bottom of their foot. You want to cover this impression. You want to get it to where there's no black showing. You don't want to overhang it, but this tells you how wide of the bottom of the last you should use. So I've come to the conclusion that I needed a 7.5 double E on this boot, this particular person, and I'll show you what a proper fit looks like here. Okay, you'll notice that there is no black showing. There's no black showing around the heel. The ball fits very well. Okay, the ball of the last and the ball of the foot are in conjunction. This is what I look for. This is the very first thing I try to fit, is this measurement from here to here. The proper arch length is most critical in a cowboy boot. If the arch is too long, it's going to pinch their foot when they walk. If the arch is too short, it's going to pinch their toes. So you have to fit this measurement very, very closely. A lot of people take just the tracing of the foot. Well, the trouble with the tracing is you're doing an awful lot of guessing. You've got much, much more to worry about. Okay. I'll show you what this looks like, and I'm going to take that narrower last and place in here too to give you some idea. You can see that. Okay. If you were to take the pencil and lay on here and hold it vertical, you would almost follow the same line you did when you traced their foot. The outside of the foot here, you're going to lose a little bit because they have quite a bit of fatty tissue hanging out there. Don't worry about the point from here to here, unless it's very excessive. This is a pretty good fit here. I take this 7A and put in here. Switch to the right foot. You would notice see which side you can see better on here. You would notice that I'm way inside the tracing. Okay, I'm way inside here. And the same up in here. Bring it to the other side, you're going to have the same problem. I'm probably a good quarter of an inch in on it. That's something you want to look for. You also, when you're using the standard men's chart, an A is approximately 5/8 of an inch narrower than what we're using, so it's obvious that that's too small for me. So when we're getting to this point, you want to consider arch length. That's what we're shooting for, arch length. If I were to take the black impression again and show you, I'll give you another shot of what you're looking for. This last fits this foot. I'll slide her this way for you, like so. Now, if I turn it this way, you're going to notice that not much black is showing on this one. I'll get my fingers out of the way. And the same here. You do have quite a bit of toe length. You should have a 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch toe length on a last, past the end of their toe. The more pointed the toe, obviously, the more toe length you have to have. Okay. Once we've established what last we're going to use, the next thing I look for is the heel measurement. That was the dimension you took around here. This is the heel measurement.
You might use your black pencil.
Okay. How's that?
That's good.
Okay. This dimension's next. If you pick up a boot and you find that, say, a D or an E would fit the best around the ball of the foot, but the heel dimension of the last is so much greater than theirs, that's telling you that they have a very, very flat foot, very flat, but very, very wide. So you're going to have to go to a narrower last, say even a B or an A last, so that you shrink this heel measurement, so that you're dropping this. For every width that you drop, say from a D to a C, you lose a 1/4 of an inch in heel measurement. Okay? It just is much more simple than to grind down a last. It's gone. You've lost the fundamental measurements of this last. So it's easier to take and go to a narrower last and build the ball back up to what the dimensions were and what it fit on your chart than it is to grind the last down. I do grind last down now, but it isn't something that I'd recommend you start with on it. Learn to use a little bit narrower last on it. Go to a little bit narrower last. Don't forget that you may have to also build up the sides of the heel. Okay? This is something you're going to have to watch. But this simply tells you that if he has an extremely wide ball measurement, but a very, very small heel measurement, you're going to have to go to a little bit smaller last, a little, from a D to a B to an A. This you won't know until you've done a few pair on it. I have no guideline for you other than experience. When we lay out the patterns, we'll get into heel measurement again, and you'll see why it's critical on it. Once you've established that, once you've established the last you want to use, get your tape measure out and check it. Now I shortened this measurement up by approximately a quarter of an inch over what the foot measurement was, because I know this person has bunions because of the tracing we took. You can plainly see the bunions on their foot. When you measured the circumference around the ball of their foot, you measured all of it. You measured bunions and all. But the rest of the foot doesn't have bunions. So you're going to fit this foot a little narrow and build out the bunions. I have got approximately a quarter of an inch to go. A quarter of an inch adds up very quickly when you're building up lasts. I'm going to build up the bunion area on this last. I'm going to build up the front of the middle instep on this last. This is where we need it on this one. We'll go through this now. I hope I've got it clear for you as far as picking what last I use. Even the bootmakers I've went and spent time with couldn't give me a definite rule of thumb. This standard last chart and the length chart on the backside helped considerably. A couple of the bootmakers I spent time with just had that much experience. They didn't even take impressions anymore. They could look at this tracing and say, well, gee, that's a D, that's an E. That comes with experience. I'm learning a great deal more about tracings and so forth than I did when I started. When you get done with this course, you're going to know more than I did when I started, and I spent time with bootmakers. Bootmakers have a tendency to develop their own pattern and forget what they've developed. They just do it. I'm finding it very difficult to recall to memory some of the things I've had to learn. We're trying to be very, very thorough with it. Okay, we'll cut up the material now we need for the build-up. Need a little for the big toe area here. This is for the bunion we were working on. It will go right in this area here. Okay, we need one for the instep. When you build up the instep, you're going to want to build up around the instep, not on top of it. And place it more to the inside on it. You don't want to put right on top of it, on top of the instep, unless they've people that have had their foot stepped on by a horse or something, and have had this area broken. They will have quite a bit of calcium built up there. I have had people that I've had to do an extreme build-up right on the top of the foot, but generally I put it more to the inside like this. I'll skive this one down here for you by hand. This is just a common round knife. I used it extensively before I got the Fortuna skiver. And I'll skive one this way, and I'll go over and skive the other one on the Fortuna to give you some idea of what the difference is. As a bootmaker, you're going to want to try and keep some of your costs down, and one way of doing it is cutting your time down in construction. I believe in using machinery where I can do equally as good a job without sacrificing quality, and that skiver is one way to do it. You should expect to pay somewhere in the neighborhood of about $1,000 for a good used skiver, but they're well worth the money. Okay, here we have the instep ready to go. I'll go over and skive this bunion patch for you and get some idea just the difference in time. Are we ready? There you go. It's hardly worth the walk, huh? Okay, we'll go over here and put her together for you. You want to rough up your lasts. Plastic lasts especially, you have trouble getting it to stick with. This is just a contact cement like barge. If you do an extreme last buildup, a half inch or better, you're going to have to nail the leather on plastic. It won't stick by itself. I use old magazines to glue on, simply because you're working on a clean surface each time. Keeps things a little neater. shoe repairmen especially are going to find it hard to get accustomed to working with new. I did. When you work with new leather, you have to be considerably more careful. Everything that you do to it is going to make it look as old as what you're accustomed to working on, I guess is the easiest way, most delicate way to put it. Okay. These we'll put on here. I've already done the other foot for you. We'll save a little time that way. If you have an area that you feel could come down a little farther, you can take it on your finisher and smooth it out a little bit. You don't want big lumps sticking down in here when you go to put it on, especially soft leather. It's going to, those marks will stay there. If you were working with all 4-ounce leather, you really wouldn't have to worry about it. You can do it one of two ways. You can take it on the finisher and sand it, or you can take a sharper knife and trim the edge down like so. You're going to be going over to the finisher in a minute anyway, so I usually do it there if I've got any that I want to take any bumps off. Again, I'm putting it to the inside instead of right up on top. This is why I was speaking to you when we were measuring the feet of be careful of the corns, the calluses, the bunions. This is what they're paying you for. You are going to get the people in. You are going to get the people in that do need different size boots, that have abnormalities in their feet, club foot, whatever. But the general customer that you're going to have is going to be you or me. He's not going to have a severe foot problem, so you're going to have to convince him that it's worth spending the extra money to have them made for him. You're going to have to convince him that you can give him a better fit. Generally, if they've got bunions, it's a good sign they've been buying their boots too small. It's also a good sign that the arch hasn't been fitting properly. A lot of people will have to go to a longer, narrower boot to get less heel slip. I'm sure you've been in Western wear stores where they've told you, pull the boot on. If the heel slips, that's normal. It slips because that's the only way they can get a fit out of the boot. They're trading length and width, trying to give you as tight a fit as possible. You have the advantage of doing just the opposite. When we get done here, we'll explain to you the heel measurement again, because that is the critical measurement concerning heel slip. It's also a pretty tricky measurement to interpret. I've made several pair of boots over because I didn't interpret it properly. That's another thing you don't want to be afraid of. If you have a problem with it when the customer tries it on, assure them that it will be done right. I have approximately 230 pair of boots out, and I have had to adjust approximately 6 pair of them. And by that I mean serious adjustment. Take the boot apart, take it in, take the heel measurement in. And I don't hesitate at all at doing that. That's what they're paying for. You learn by that. You learn very, very well, and very quickly. When you have to start redoing something, I don't particularly care to do that, so I try and get it right the first time. Okay, trim this up here. Cut the excess off flush with it. I don't know if we can pick up on the difference here of the plastic and the leather, but as you can see, it adds up very quickly. It doesn't take much to throw a 1/4 inch on. If you have a person with an out-flared foot, in-flared foot, again, we'll get back to that, that is where you're going to build up. If you look at this foot, and you notice that they have quite a bit hanging out on this side, off the center line of their foot, that's where I would put most of my build-up. If you notice that they are a person that has quite a bit hanging out over here, and he complains constantly about his toes hurting, and you need to build up, you put it in this area. Help if I get my fingers out of the way, huh? Put it in this area here. This particular person shouldn't be wearing an extremely pointed-toed boot. If I could talk him into it, I would talk him into a rounder toe. That's part of your responsibility. If a person comes in with a very square-toed foot, explain that to them. And if you have to even take a last and put it on their foot, if they once see what's going to happen to their foot with a pointed toe and how much more of a last you're going to have to give them to get them more room back here, I don't have nearly as much trouble selling them a broader toe. And the trend in this area, at least, is to a broader toe. I'm glad to see that. The old needle toes were a pain to get a good fit out of. I've made about 4 pair of them. I don't like to make them. But, they present their own set of problems in inseaming the boot around the toe. You have to slice the welt to get it to lay properly around the toe. You have to build a special toe box for a needle point boot. It's a style that I'm kind of glad to see to go. We'll cover what you have to do to a needle, more of a needle toe boot when we get to inseaming on it. We've pretty much got the build-ups done. Check your build-ups again. I'll show you, go over it again here with you, where you want to place the tape. We're going to put it across the ball. Again, remember this is the widest part. Visualize what that foot looked like. Plastic welds especially, you need about 12 hands to do this with. So I use all the rest of me. Okay. There's your ball measurement right there. Check it with your chart. Check it with your measurements. This particular foot I'm fitting about 1/8 of an inch short because it was a very fat foot. If this foot was more of a bony foot, by that it doesn't squeeze much. If you grab that foot and you don't give to it, you better be right on the button with the fit because it's going to be much more critical. I also take into consideration at this time if they've been wearing tight boots. Ask the people if they like a tight-fitting boot. You're going to have to need all the information you can get from them to fit them properly. I will fit generally lighter leathers tighter than I will heavier leathers. By that I mean kangaroo I will take in as much as 1/4 of an inch most of the time on there. If they have a 9-inch measurement, I will drop to 8 3/4 on the ball and the waist, not on the instep, on the ball and the waist of their foot, because kangaroo fits so much softer. If you go to a much more heavy leather, 4-ounce work leather, you're going to have to stay within 1/8 of an inch of it. Not 1/8 of an inch larger, 1/8 of an inch smaller. Always goes a little bit smaller. Okay, we'll measure the waist here. Again, the waist is the narrowing right behind the ball, right here. Drop your hands along. How's that look? Pretty good?
Yeah.
Okay. Drop your hands along. You want to just drop past the ball. Okay. You measure your waist. If you want to take in a little extra, you're going to take it in the waist. Most tracings that you will have will show the waist as being extremely wide. I'll put this on this one here and give you an example. Okay. See all this hanging out here? This is the fat on the side of their foot. Don't worry about that. If you were to build this in to the waist of the boot, fill this in, the boot would be too big. Time and time again, you're always going to have 3/8 of an inch sticking out here on the side of the foot through the waist. Don't worry about that. That will fit. That's something you'll have to take my word on. Some boot makers do as much as take a 1/2 inch off every waist measurement, irregardless. They just automatically take the 1/2 inch off of it. I don't go quite that much. I go according to the type of leathers I'm using. I feel that's more important. I do take it in a little bit though. From here we're going to move to the middle instep, which is what everybody considers the high instep, right there. If you were to give this last to a stranger and say, where's the instep, he's going to go right there. Okay, that's your middle instep. You're going to go down to where you would envision that 5th metatarsal bone again, right there. And if you look at your last, when you get some lasts, and the older the last is, the more predominant it's going to be. The new plastic last, they pretty well got away from it, but some of the old lasts I've got, there's actually a bump there. They've built right into to the last to get some relief there. So we're going to go from the middle instep, right around to where that 5th metatarsal bone would be, across the bottom, and back up again, like so. And from here, you hold it in the same place, you're going to go over that bone again, and you're going to go right up, like so. This is going to be your high instep measurement. Again, 3 or 4 hands help. Okay. This doesn't give, so just pull it tight. You're not going to get any more than it's going to give you. From here, we're going to go to the heel measurement. Hold it where you had it. Turn it down. Like so. See about how much of the crown I've got sticking out there? Okay. If you're within 1/4 of an inch, generally this is going to run large. If you're within 1/4 of an inch larger than the heel measurement, you're fine. You're going to be okay. If not, you're either going to have to do one of two things. You're going to have to go to a narrower last. Remember I was saying that if you drop from a double E to a D, you're going to lose a quarter of an inch in this heel measurement. You're also losing here. But you have two ways of curing this heel problem. You either go to a narrower last, or you grind this one down. That decision would be up to you. But I'm just giving you the alternatives. Okay, pretty well got this covered. I think from here we'll go into putting the insole on the bottom and showing you a pretty slick way of forming the insole, and show you how to channel it and get ready to put the boots on. I think maybe it wouldn't hurt to go through here one more time, review how I fit it. I can't say enough about this. I take their stick measurement. From the stick measurement, I go to the conversion chart and I convert it from inches to the English measuring system. Once you get these charts and you look at it, you're going to be able to watch the tape and pick this piece of paper up and see what I'm talking about. Like I said, on this side you're going to have your conversion chart for length. On this side you're going to have a standard last chart. You will also understand more of what a last does per length once you get this chart and look at it. You're going to realize that if you were to go from an 8D to a 9C, you're going to have exactly the same dimensions, except it's going to be longer. This is why when you go to a store, sometimes they'll switch length for width and give you the same fit. That works to a point, not all the time. It's also why if you have somebody come in that has one foot considerably longer than the other, but they measure out about the same, you get away with that. And if you have a complete set of lasts, you don't do any build-up. You just take a longer last and a narrower measurement, you end up the same way. A narrower width. Okay, we've established length of the foot. We convert it to the English size chart. We turn it over and we say, okay, we're going to need a 7, an 8, whatever. You come down the chart, down to an 8, the 8 length, and just keep going until you find the width you need. The drawback to this particular type of system is you have a tendency to get a little wide. You'll run into it with the heel measurement. It's a lot easier to say, well, gee, this person, I could put him right in a 9E, but all the time he's been wearing a B. I wonder why. He's wearing that B because in a 9E he would fall out of it. So the front of his foot is suffering for the back of his foot. Pay attention to his size. You go down, you find the length and the dimensions you're looking for, go get those lasts and start comparing them to the tracings. One of the first things I do when I get to the tracing aspect of it is go for arch length. Make sure the ball of this foot fits, the ball of this last fits his tracing. Make sure that this measurement from here to here fits. Then start comparing here. Spend your time here because if you hurry through this, you're not going to give them a fit. Take your heel measurement and realize that if this heel measurement is completely out of whack from what this ball measurement, waist measurement, and instep measurement is, you're working with a person with a very, very shallow foot but a very wide foot. That particular person would find a terrible time buying Western boots because he's going to get an awful lot of heel slip in them. In order to get a boot that's wide enough across the ball, he grows considerably in the heel measurement here. So he could take that boot and kick it off across the room. If a Western boot fits properly, he's going to have to pull hard to get it on, he's going to have to pull hard to get it off. That's a fit. The least amount of heel slip you can give him is the best fit. So we're going to fit arch length, heel length, and then we're going to worry about the ball and the instep and the waist. This particular method of fitting I have found works very, very well for me. My boots go on hard, they come off hard, but everybody has the same opinion of them. Once they're done, they're very comfortable. They have no more pinching, they have no more toes curling up on them to a great degree. You will build up very, very little. Sometimes you will build up very, very much. I've got several here I'll show you that I've had to build up a great deal. This particular gentleman can't buy shoes. He can't go into any store, he can't order them. This started out as a triple E last. It is now...
Pull your magazine, it's a little hard to see.
Oh, okay. Work a little better on the black surface. Okay. It started out as a triple E last. It is now about an H. I'll turn it over and give you some idea as far as buildup. I think you might be able to see here. There's approximately a quarter of an inch here, a quarter of an inch here. He had hammer toes, so I've added almost 3/4 of an inch of depth to his shoe. If I turn the last around, can you see the buildup I've added to his instep? Okay, there's a 1/2 inch here and there's a 1/2 inch here. He had a very, very narrow heel. You'll notice how wide this foot is, and it's a standard heel. If this person couldn't be fitted on your chart when you put him on the impression, and you just can't find something wide enough for the heel, you're going to have to build the heel out. You're going to have to actually add leather to here. If you find a person that you can't get a fit, he's just between sizes, a 1/2 size won't do it, you can divide size again by adding about a 1/16 of an inch of leather to the back of the heel here to get the measurement for your ball measurement here. You can split sizes that way by adding a little bit of leather back here. The last grows proportionately from here to here, and I found that if I can't get them into a fit with the 1/2 sizes, I can divide them again by adding again a 1/16 of an inch here. Here's a particular pair for a fellow that has a great deal of size difference in his feet from the toes forward. They are both approximately a 9 through the instep, through the high and middle instep and heel measurement, but from there on out, this foot drops to about a 6 and this one remains constant. This would give you some idea of the extremes you're going to go into. You also might want to look around and buy used lasts, buy odds and ends as cheaply as you can and put them away, because someday you're going to have to do this, and it would be a shame to take a new set like this and ruin them permanently. When I do go to the extreme, as I have on this particular gentleman, he buys them. I don't keep them myself. These go home with him. They're his responsibility. You could get like Sam Lucchese and end up with a warehouse full of lasts hanging on the wall with their name on them. I figured the man has paid for them. They're his lasts. Many bootmakers don't do that. I don't feel that's right. If the gentleman is upset with me, doesn't particularly care for my workmanship or whatever, he should have the ability to take his last that he's already paid for and go to someone else. That's how I feel about it. This particular last would be a good one to show you that on the bottom he has a terrible calcium buildup on the bottom. He's got a bunion growth started right on the metatarsals. I also take this and transfer it to the bottom of the last. I'll turn her this way and see if you can get a better view of it here. This gives them some relief. If you were to take that person's foot and take that person's boot and stick your hand in there, you would find this depression in his boot. You would see that he's actually wearing it in. You're doing that for him by doing this. You're making the boot a little more comfortable immediately. I build in all directions. I'll build on the bottom of the last to give him relief. Here I've added to the heel. He has a foot that has a tendency to flare out this way in the heel, so I added to the heel. All again making it more comfortable. What the foot looks like, you have to try and make these lasts look like. They don't. These don't look like feet. These don't look like feet. So what you're trying to do is take something that looks nothing like this and give them some comfort. All you have to work with is arch length and dimension. The rest of it you have to keep cosmetic. At this time, you can also build a different toe character on. I'll take a piece of paper and set this on here and see if that lightens up for you. Here is exactly the same last. This man wanted the old higher style toe, the old square toe. Not the new Lucchese toe, but the old square toe.
Yeah, just leave it on the black, I think it shows.
On the black? Okay. And I actually built a higher toe, the old H-Y-E-R, higher toe on this particular last. You can do it. It isn't any big thing. It isn't any more difficult than building a build-up on the instep or whatever. You can also put the toe character on when you put the toe box in, which we'll show you when we get to that stage of the boot making. Okay, I think we've got it pretty well covered. Let's move on to putting the insole on the bottom here.